Alright, YouTubes. Gonna make a video response again to Life Is How It Is. This video will be like more like an actual response. My previous video was more like just stuff that popped into my head and was inspired to talk about. Anyways, yeah, I don't think people, when you were talking about the thing that you cleared up in the beginning of the video, I don't think people who were commenting on that in your vid probably like finished watching your video. They probably commented before they saw the whole of your video. But just some things I wanted to comment on was, when you said what's good for individuals is what's good for society, and of course that makes sense. Well, I wanted to point out that actually depends on which rules you have, and of course that is the whole idea of getting the best rules, and the rules that maximize social welfare. Obviously you can look at it two different ways: have rules that promote the well-being of people, and then rules that mitigate against social disutility, or they mitigate against destructive behavior, stuff that is anti-civilization and that sort of thing. So yeah, only with the right rules in place is it the case that what's good for individuals and what's good for them to do is good for society. And that's kind of the purpose of having a framework of rules for people to interact in the marketplace, right? So certain things can be profitable, but it's only when you have satisfying the consumer and also covering the costs, the subjective costs of production, internalized in there, does profit actually become good. So without that, if you say, right, so for example, we have the state here, and they have regulations and stuff like that, have barriers to entry, and of course you can lobby the state for privileges and stuff like that. So when those enter, that changes the rules, and you can actually make profit by doing things that are destructive to society, and doing things that actually does not fulfill people's desires or anything like that. It's just kind of, extortion, as many libertarians would like to put it. But yeah, so it just goes to show it depends on the rules that are in place. So I just wanted to point that out. So it's like the institutional framework determines what outcomes you'll see, and encourage certain kinds of behavior, and the goal is to encourage those kinds such that individuals seeking their self-interest will lead to good outcomes for society. And the way to do this is by making sure all costs are internalized, making sure there's no externalities. Of course, nothing's perfect. The market does a great deal to internalize costs, but some things are still not internalized. And in terms of the things today that are not internalized, some of this might be due to just particular norms and that we'd still face on a free market. Some of it is just strictly due, or almost strictly due, to government policy, to the state policy. Let's see, for example, one thing that comes up is what was it? Fisheries, that might be one, because no one owns the oceans and things like that. Although, from what I hear, some of that might be technological difficulties as well. Anyways, what else? Consequentialism versus deontology. Another thing I wanted to say is I think all morals, or at least not for everyone, but for most people, do have a consequentialist aim or an argument to them. People say, "Oh, I believe in this morality because it supports this view," or "I think it would make the world look like this." And not everyone believes that, but I do think a lot of people believe that, and they look at it that way. And the way I look at it is not so much the conflict of deontology with consequentialism. Like you said, though, I don't think someone will I don't think it makes sense, or as much sense, to go strictly from a deontological viewpoint. I kind of sometimes think of it as like a pyramid, right? And it's like at the top you have like your actions or whatever, and in the middle you have like moral or whatever views or values, and then at the bottom of it is consequentialism. And so it's all of these things on top are based on what you think the outcomes are going to be. or at least that's how I think of it. I know not everyone else does. I think it's a good way to look at it. Of course, because I'm biased, but yeah, I definitely don't think deontology on its own really makes a lot of sense. At least not to me. But that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say in this video.